to episode 223 of Retro Encounter. This week we'll be discussing Suikoden V. This is part 2 of our game journal episodes. And joining me again is Zach Wilkerson.
Hello.
And Tris Mendoza.
Hey everybody.
And I'm Leona McCallum. So, last time we left off, we had just gotten up to Lord Lake. And that had been sort of revived and they were on our side now. And I just want to get right in because I think we have we found out last time how much we have to talk about in this game. It's deceptively a lot.
All the things.
So there'll be no, I'm not messing around at the start here. We're jumping in. We're going to finish this game today. The next sort of big plot point we go to is Lelkar, which is an interesting town because it's like a sort of microcosm of all of Felena right in one little town. You have a Godwin side of the town, you have a Barrows side of the town, and you have like a sort of monarchist side of the town who are more in allegiance with the prince and the queen and stuff like that. And we go there because we're in the war room and a guy called Taylor, who is our noble journalist. Columnist, yeah. Tabloid. No, you'd hate that. Not tabloid.
He's a journalist who literally works for your side, though, so I'm not really sure if he's a journalist at this point.
It's propaganda, isn't it? He says it's not, but it's a bit propaganda. But he comes from a message from one of the three leaders of Lelkar, and that's Wasil. And we have to go there and sort out the situation that's happening there. And this was also Kyle's hometown, so Kyle will be going with us because he promises no one will recognize him.
He's like, no one will recognize the prince either. We'll just go and disguise. Oh yeah, it'll be fine.
No one will know. So we get there, and of course, everyone knows him. He's
Wasil starts like shouting at you when you hit the ground. He's like, "Oh, the prince is here! Oh, and you're in enemy territory."
Yeah, and then you're like, "No, the prince is not here. We're incognito." And it's like, "Oh, hello, not the prince. Definitely not the prince over here."
I just love how Carl was like, "Ixe on the prince."
You know it's bad when you got to break out the pig Latin.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Prince, Kyle, and whoever else you go with. Is it Leon? Obviously, will be with us at this point.
I think Siley comes with you as well.
Oh yeah, Siley.
Yeah.
Is Siley? I don't remember.
I could be wrong.
I always have Siley's in my party anyway, so I don't know when she's supposed to be there and when she's not.
Exactly. Yeah, she's always there.
Yeah. Lelkar is definitely an interesting town. It's as I said, like a microcosm of all of Felena, and we're there to sort out a sort of... What is the situation that we're there for?
It was to deal with the Godwin, right? With Orok's group? I think so. Oh my gosh.
We all played this like over a month ago.
I'm trying to remember, but I think it was to deal with Orok's Goonies, pretty much, because they were recruiting people to be in the Godwin army.
Yeah, we get there and it's like they're drafting kids, basically,
right.
Young men.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah, it was awful. It's definitely like they were. I think you can't find them. They're like recruiting a 9-year-old or something. That was weird.
Yeah.
You can run into that part in town. So Orok is the leader of the Godwin faction side of the town, and we think he's just a Godwin man through and through, right? It's what we're led to believe, anyway.
Early on, yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Wasil is sort of monarchist middle set of the town, and Volga is the more Barrows side. Is that right?
Not really, because after they already find out about what Barrows did, it was just a schism at that point.
Yeah.
Between the two different, because they didn't really want anybody to go to Godwin's territory.
Yeah.
And I think Volga was more pissed that Orok was taking people from his area.
Yeah, sort of like having to defend their side of the towns from recruitment.
Right.
Yeah, Volga's more, I think, just like Lelkar for Lelkar's sake. I don't think he really cares that much about one side or the other.
Yeah, definitely. And he admits himself, he was not completely selfless. It was lining his pockets a little bit, but
yeah.
mostly it was deep down just trying to do what he thought was best for Lelkar, and that was to play along with the Godwins, do what they wanted, and hope to be left alone, basically.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I remember from it.
Yeah, no, that's accurate. I mean, my favorite part of Lelkar is that I can actually find my way around it.
Oh, yeah, because it's quite a great time.
It's actually navigable. So I really enjoyed that part of it. Even though I couldn't remember where the inn was, it still only took me 15 seconds to find it instead of 10 minutes. So that was good.
There's even 2 inns in Lelkar.
Yeah, exactly.
An inn for everyone. But eventually I think we sort of infiltrate Oroc's headquarters, and we go into his basement and we find knocked out people who are about to be drafted. I guess that's what they are, right? They were like drugged and then going to be sent off to be drafted.
Yes.
To not resist.
Yeah, to not resist. So we go down there and then we have to fight his hired bodyguard, who is Nikia.
I love Nikia, honestly.
She's super fun.
Yeah, she's so dumb.
She is a food for hire. Literally, she is a food for hire. If you give her food, she will be there.
Yeah. I love how she managed to eat him out of house and home. Like I've given you so much money and you lost. But that sort of is when Zahak gets tipped off that the prince is in Lelkar, and Oric tries to sort of hide us. He admits right away if he's asked, but he doesn't come forward and say, "Oh yeah, the prince is in Lelkar, Zahak, come over," because he knew that would be bad for his town just to be get the whole navy there. But Zahak does know. Oric gives us up, and basically we have to do a war battle in Lelkar at Lelkar town, and when you win that battle, Zahak's escape plan is to basically burn down the Godwin side of the town, just so we can't get past the fire and we'll be distracted, and then they can make a break for it, which is quite it's a lot of the Godwins making a lot of their own problems with who they hire, right. I think.
I think it's interesting the way they present it, the Godwins in general, because especially by the end of the game, I feel like they want us to be sympathetic with the Godwins, at least to some degree, and think they were trying to do the right thing. But 2 things work against that. One is they're really dumb. They literally, burning down your own side of the town when you want to keep that as part of your territory, it'd be better to lose the territory than it would be to burn it down and then lose all the support you had there.
Absolutely.
And also, they just do lots of really evil things. And it's not I feel like even more than Highland in Suikoden 2, Leona as the Godwin faction does so many really evil things, and it's difficult for me to sympathize with them in any way when I feel like the game sort of wants us to. And I think it's sort of a weakness of the narrative in general, personally.
I don't know if I consider it a weakness, but it definitely does try and show you that they're not just evil for evil's sakes. They do have an ideology, whether it's flawed or whether they really try their best to achieve it, or if they really are capable of achieving it. It's they show they're not completely two-dimensional, you know?
Right, I think I agree with, definitely agree with Leona's statement, because I feel like the whole Suikoden series does that. It's where, aside from Luca Blight, I feel like it always presents the factions as it's not just black and white.
And I agree with you, but it's here that and I think of something like Suikoden 1 or Suikoden 2 or even 3, where in almost all cases they didn't do things that were just objectively horrible, and throughout this I feel like the Godwin faction does lots of things, and again outside of Luca Blight, lots of things that are just objectively horrible, and I think that sort of works against the game's own ends to some degree for me, because it really is more black and white here than I would like it to be because of what they do, I guess, to me.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes down to Gazelle's character and his sort of penchant for chaos and just setting things up. So he hires these complete mad people to be generals, like Kildrick, and even Zahak is quite ruthless. So it's definitely, he just likes to see how things play out, and that does lead to a lot of short-sightedness on his part.
Yeah, and I think it's also a way to characterize or really showcase his inexperience. Because I feel like it was the story's way of highlighting that Giselle, even though he loves all this stuff, he has no experience on how to orchestrate anything.
Yeah, he's definitely not as smart as he thinks he is.
Right.
Yeah,
He's all
Lucretia
fluff.
just runs circles around him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And even
Marscal is just sort of not even there. He doesn't really take part in what Giselle does. He knows about it, but he's like doesn't sort of rein in his son in any way. It's more of a he's got his eye on the sun rune. The sun rune is all he thinks about. That's how he's going to achieve his goals, and Giselle can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I like too, is that it also highlights the relationship between Mariscal and Giselle, because at any time Mariscal could have interfered because he's the one that has the experience with all this stuff, but he doesn't, because the game makes it very clear that his goal isn't to do all these, pull all the strings and stuff.
Yeah.
But to just focus on what he wants, which is the sun rune in the end.
Yeah, he's very big picture, I think.
Right, and he's like, it just really, I don't know, I like the way it shows that kind of like dichotomy between
Absolutely.
the two.
Definitely different characters. I wonder if somehow, like, the death of his wife and sort of Gazelle's mother made him maybe let Giselle just run free a bit. Maybe he didn't want to rein in his son because, like, that's his only tie to his wife now or something like that. It's not really established or anything, but I always wonder why he just doesn't seem to have any sort of authority over his son. He just lets him do what he wants. And
I mean, I think that by the end of the game, you get to feel that his interest was really kind of elsewhere.
Yeah, it's definitely
really
just
what he's going for. Based on the final boss and things like that.
Yeah.
Right, and it makes it go back to where they both, even though they both were doing different things, they're both very similar in the end, because Gazelle's focus was on his plans, whereas Mariscal's, they're both short-sighted people. Like, they can only focus on what they want, and everything else kind of blurs within the background, and it doesn't matter as long as they get to that end goal of what they want.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it really ties it back to that they are related.
Yeah, definitely. The apples and carrot.
Yeah, they seem so different too. You're right. That's interesting. Yeah.
So moving on past Lelkar, we get Lelkar on our side. Obviously, the sort of Godwin faction now, I guess, are maybe less sympathetic to the Godwin cause, and it's more easy to get all of the Lelkar to work together with us. When we get back to the headquarters, I think we get a little rest at this point, so you can do some recruitment at this point. But the next big story event is we get word that a double of the prince is causing mayhem in Sable. It's bad for our cause because it's giving the prince a bad name, and we need all the allies we can get. So the rumor is that the prince is going around and basically robbing people and holding up caravans and stuff like that. So we have to go to Lelkar ourselves. And we get a cute little scene with Siledes wanting to beat him to a bloody pulp, and then Leon like, no, I will double beat him to a bloody pulp. And that comes up a few times as they go. What are our thoughts on the events that happen in Sable with the bandit situation?
Oh, honestly, when I first did this, I couldn't stop thinking of Skies of Arcadia.
Right. See, I've not played it yet.
It's literally that one instance where an imposter takes over and like ends up ruining, pretty much tarnishing your name. But it's really hard to get the event. But honestly, I thought of, because it's like 3 of them as well. There's three imposters in Skies of Arcadia, and I was like, oh my, this is literally Skies of Arcadia.
Do you think this is a coincidence or sort of did one come before the other?
Skies of Arcadia was Dreamcast area, so I'm pretty sure that was first.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know if this was implemented only in the GameCube version, so I don't know if it's,
Interesting.
But definitely an interesting, like, side tangent.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was definitely like a mini story in a way, away from all the sort of hardcore war battles and stuff. We're having like solving a little mystery in Sable about who the bandit prince is.
I mean, it's a callback to Suikoden 2, right? Doesn't the same thing happen where someone is like pretending to be Ryu in Suikoden 2 as well?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Yes, I mean, it's copying itself, I think, in this situation at least.
Is there another Roy in Suikoden? I feel like there's another Roy. Maybe even in Suikoden 2. I don't know.
Maybe.
I honestly can't remember.
Hang on, I'm gonna Google it.
Like, I feel like Roy is only in Suikoden 5. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's only in Suikoden 5.
So, so we find out that Roy is impersonating the prince, because he is a shocking double for the prince, and it's pretty hard to tell, even, you know, if you know the prince very well. I think Leon is the only one who is foolproof 100% of the time.
Right, yeah. I mean, honestly, you can tell by the eyes. But I mean,
the eye color.
Oh yeah, the bright yellow eyes.
Yeah, the eye color. Yeah.
Even as a colorblind person, I could tell.
That's great. But I also like that. At first you don't think that this has anything to do with the plot. But then Roy becomes such a main player all throughout. And so I think that's why I think this really, for me, would kind of show. I mean, I think I said it before in the first part, but I really like how Suikoden V, even though it ties all of these characters so much more well together, and it makes them feel like they have a meaning in the story. You know, they're not just there to fill in the gaps of 108 characters.
Yeah.
But these characters actually are like, here is like, I feel like it kind of goes, I don't know, I've never read the actual story of Suikoden, which is called The Water Margin.
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
I
watched The Water Margin as a kid. There was a show like from the 70s called The Water Margin.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah. It's like a kung fu movie. I quite enjoyed that. It doesn't have a lot to do with Suikoden other than, you know, the 108 sort of people.
Yeah, and so that's why I really like how they, again, tie everything back together, but you don't necessarily see it all come together until the story keeps going. And that was like, oh, this is just a really weird, like, I thought it was padding at first when I first played it. Like, oh, what's the relevance of all this? Like, is this the purpose? And then,
definitely, when it's first introduced, it does seem like, really, we're going away from all this war to deal with this ourselves in person.
Like, is this really more important than, you know, stopping this war? And then you realize that, because of course Lucretia has a plan for everything.
Oh, I love her.
Yes. And she, you know.
I mean, we're going to have to go like a Lucretia love tangent at some point in this podcast.
I think we already did last time, but I'm down for it.
Yeah, down for another one. I do love her, and she's so much. I don't know, the way she presents her plans is so different from the other Suikoden tacticians.
Yes,
and the way that she's like open to disagreement, which she is always correct. But she does give you a lot of options to play with her plan, and she can come up with better other ones in the fly. So it's a more interesting rather than, say, Shu, who in Suikoden 2 is like his plan, and I'm going to set fire to everything.
I think Lucretia, I feel like the way I see her, she's much more like seer-like than the other commanders. Like, it's very kind of unsettling how she can predict movements. Compared to the other
I feel like other Suikoden tacticians were worse than her in that regard. They seem to have an omnipotence. Well, I think Lucretia says a lot of times, like, I don't know, I can't draw a conclusion on that yet, and stuff like that.
I think she just doesn't. She doesn't assume, and that's her, and that's her like strength is that she doesn't. She never tells you, even though she knows, because she's like, I don't want to make assumptions because then you're gonna take action based on my assumption.
Yes, exactly.
And I love that. And I think that's why I like her, because she can really predict other people's actions based on, that's what she does. She never tells you about Sali's plan.
No. She has a theory on it, but she's not going to just come out and tell you because that might influence things. Right,
and that's why I always feel like she's kind of like a seer, you know? Like, she can, like, oh my god, like, can you not do this right now?
I mean, if she had a crystal ball, she would look like a seer, to be honest.
I mean, the way that they always present it, though, is like she says, well, I'm not sure, but I think it's probably this. And then whatever she thinks it probably is what it is. Right. I mean, and she's like, well, I'm just going to send it just in case. You never know. And then you're like, okay. I mean, I do think that, you know, she is presented almost as omnipotently as the other character. She's just more humble about it.
She's just more humble about it. She definitely
that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. She's not got the arrogance that the other ones do.
Yeah.
Yes. Well said, Zach.
It's definitely a case of that. She also has, like, I think the fact she seems so well travelled and knows so many important people. But we never quite know. Like, she knows Cathari from the Howling Voice Guild. She knows Zweig. So she has like that sort of she knows all the important people, but she never reveals what the relationship is. So she knows a lot of stuff just from her travels, I imagine. And she's from far away. She's from Grassland herself, so she's. I just want a Lucretia side story. That's all I want.
Yeah. I know, right? And I think that's what really separates her from all the other, tacticians in past games. Aside from 4 is that her tactician skills base comes from her own experiences. She traveled the world.
Yeah.
That's
no
right.
indication that she went to school for it necessarily.
Yeah, right.
Probably under Matthew Silverberg. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, love Festover.
How dare you?
I know. But we find out that the bandit press situation was that Roy was put up to the task by drumroll Urim Barrows.
Shocker.
Who has been a mild annoyance all throughout this game. We've not really talked about him, but he has several side stories in this game where he is just the worst, the worst at being
one
evil.
where he makes you take a cursed book, and when you try to put it in storage, Chuck is like, "Hey, I don't want this.
No, I don't want this creepy red glowing book. Thank you." And you're like, "Oh, let's give it back then." And he ends up opening it himself. He falls for his own trap.
Yep.
So that's where you get the rune of condemnation, which I think is a child rune of the rune of punishment.
It is.
Yeah, which is great. I love that. So Urim Barrows his great big plan was just to disgrace the prince's name, and it was just a petty vengeance, basically, like it always has with him, because rather than admit that he was wrong or his family was awful, he'd rather just blame the prince for all his woes. I love that. I love how pitiful a character he is, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it also kind of shows, these little side characters with side quests, really shows that him and Gazelle aren't really all that much different, because they're both short-sighted people.
Yeah.
They see what's in front of them, but the only difference is that Gazelle tries to be much more pseudo-complex about it, whereas, Urim is just simple, I got this new plan.
Urim always just reminds me of a child. He just seems like he never grew up.
Yeah.
Gazelle at least seems like he grew up to be a shitty adult. Well, Urim just seems like a child.
Yeah. Did either of you recruit Urim by any chance?
No, I got Irish.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about it at the end. But they do some interesting things with his characterization at the end.
I've read a little bit about Urim, but I never actually did the thing himself. So we defeat Urim and Sable, and that sort of ties that around, and we can recruit the 3 bandits and Roy will be sort of like our bodyguard double throughout the game for important things, which is quite fun. He comes in quite handy a few times,
and he's also your love interest stopper.
I thought you was like, wait, what? I missed that.
Not
our love interest, you see. Oh wow. It's true what they say about gay men, they just go out with themselves.
He becomes your foil against, the whole you and Leon ship.
I'm not in that ship, to be honest.
I'm not either.
No, I guess we'll talk about it at the end, but I'm not a shipper of that either.
Yeah.
So anyway, Sable is our allies, and that's so we finally got them board, and we're looking quite good at this point in the plot. We've got quite a few allies now, and I'd say is this the point where we'd say we're on equal force to the Godwins, sort of militarily. At least it seems that way. But so when we go back, we have a rest, and during the night we see a huge fire, and that is Beaver Lodge on fire. So the Godwins have attacked Beaver Lodge and set it on fire, and we rush there to save the beavers, who haven't quite become our allies at this point, but will be after this event. Right.
Another example of the Godwins just... I don't know, burning to burn, and then it burns them. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
It was supposed to be a distraction, but it's such a weird, rash distraction that only will hurt them in the long run. As you said, it just shows their short-sightedness. That's yes, that is a distraction, but it's gonna bloody hurt in the long run.
Right. I mean, especially because they have to know that the beavers, their ability to control the water flow was incredibly important to their plans 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was.
And so obviously it's going to not work out well for them now. They needed Lucretia.
I think the attack was twofold. one, revenge for the beavers helping take down Hatred Fortress. 2, the Godwins always were going to get rid of the non-human species in Felena, and they don't really mind sacrificing that. In their heads, they're going to win, and they're going to eradicate all non-humans in Felena. So they may as well just, use them, get it out of the way now. But, it was an odd tactic, setting fire to a bunch of people who could just dive in the river.
Yeah. When they're literally standing next to the river.
Yeah.
That part I didn't get. I mean, come on, like, there's water right next to them. They're beavers, so meaning they can swim.
And they can rebuild. They can rebuild that. Yeah. But that's the tactic.
I was like, what kind of thought process were you going through? Cause
yeah, it wasn't the biggest plan, but it does work. We are distracted, and what is it they do during this time to distract us? Is it just to slow us down? I don't remember if they did anything. I feel like they did actually do something. I just can't remember what it was.
I forgot why they decided. I mean, I know they just wanted to get rid of the beavers. But I forgot why, if there's any other motive behind the fire.
We do fight Dolph as a boss in this area. It's quite easy because he's on his own.
Yep.
Yeah.
Much easier than the first time.
Yeah. It's the first time I lost, yeah.
Yep, same here.
And this is the only time you fight him again. Like, the last time you fight him is in a duel sort. So this is the last, regular battle against him. And after Beaver Lodge, the Beavers decide to come join us because they feel like they can't be bystanders in this war any longer. They're going to be dragged in either way. And we cut away to South Felena, and it's Gazelle basically telling Limslia that her coronation is going to be happening. The time for mourning of Arstadt's over, and she is going to be crowned queen, and that's a big deal. That's Limslia basically becoming the puppet figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I imagine in their head one step closer to achieving the Sun Rune, because they imagine that it needs a true queen, like a queen to wield.
Yeah, and that's why they thought that, when she becomes a queen, she will be able to wield the Sun Rune.
Yeah, but we'll come to that. We have another little side where we go try and recruit the island nations to our cause, and Nerva Island.
Yeah, or we try to intercept them because they were going to the...
Yeah, they're going to the actual coronation. So it's like we're going to meet them on Nerva Island, which is sort of halfway point in a regular port and stopping point. So it'll be a good little way to talk without necessarily being seen. And we meet Egan. Is that his name?
Egan.
Egan, yes.
Skald
Egan.
His last name is Egan.
Yes. And his daughter Bernadette, who we don't know are related to us at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they never confirm.
No, they never confirm. Either. This is something you can find out on your own, basically.
Right. The thing is,
what is it you get at that point?
It's Farid's dad and sister.
Yes. Yes.
I didn't know that.
Because George says when he meets Scald, he's like, "I am so sorry," and then Scald's like, "No, it's okay."
Wow.
So
and if you dig through Bernadette and stuff, like files and stuff, you can figure out that she's your cousin, basically.
Wow,
she's your
aunt.
She's your aunt.
She's your aunt, but very close in age.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's such a fun detail. But yeah.
I wish they had made that text instead of subtext, because it seems like it's sort of an important detail to me.
It is kind of text. It's just it's not main plot text. You just have to dig
through the text to get to it.
It's just not main plot text.
Yeah.
But Farid's an island nationer, which is an interesting little thing, because I was always imagining he was somewhere like, I don't know, Kanakan or something like that.
Oh no, they said from the beginning that he was an island nation, wasn't he?
Does he? I just remembered saying he was like a barbarian from some.
They said he's a
nation.
barbarian from the island nations. I think that's what. Yeah, I think so.
You're probably right.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, even when you see Scald's personality, it very much is like Farid.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I can totally see it.
And that's why he's like so on our side, basically. He's like your Farid's son. You're my grandkid, So I'm going to help you.
But he has to do it like.
But if you don't know the relationship, then it can be a bit like, wow, he's just like so crazy carefree that he's just throwing his backing behind this this prince that he doesn't really have a stake in. But that he's your grandfather, and that's why he does it. I do love his character, though. He is crazy.
Yeah.
The way he manipulates Bernadette.
Yeah, and Bernadette serves as such a foil to him as well. I love their relationship. It's great.
So good. It's not the biggest sort of plot events that happen here. It's just a pirate attack, and we sort that out, and then Bernadette basically comes with us as a sort of not official representation of the island nations. Not officially, but basically she's our island nationer. She's quite good. She's like a good water mage, and she's got a long distance attack. So I quite like.
Comes with the flowing rune. Yeah.
Yeah, she comes with a flowing rune, so that is always a plus in any kind of
kindness rain.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I know. It's gonna be me with spamming.
Like this game wasn't easy enough to begin with. Just spam that.
Not my version. Anyway, so that sort of does the Island Nation side story, and now we're going on to back to sort of military campaigns. We're on the offensive this time. We're striking in Dorat, which is a sort of Godwin holdout. Basically,
it's like fortress. It's
a base. Yeah,
it would be to take this would be a huge blow to the Godwins at this point. And Lucretius decided it's time to be offensive, so we do a war battle in Dorat, and Elenia is the general who's leading this siege. I think also before this, we see a little clip of Obro and Taylor spreading propaganda in the town, which is quite. I like that. I like the sort of underhanded tactics we're using.
Yeah,
like all's fair in love and war, bitch.
Yeah, because it caused the riot in the square.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But ultimately, the underhanded tactic is used to save people's lives in Dorat, which is always the difference between the underhanded tactics of the Godwins and the underhanded tactics of the Prince.
That's another thing about Lucretia. She is always trying to do the best good. So she will save civilians' lives if she can.
Yeah.
Right. She's like, I will make a plan where I try to save the most amount of people I possibly can.
Right.
So I promised I wouldn't go on, and here I am again.
You started it.
Can you tell who my favorite character is apart from Siles?
Yep. Same here. Don't worry.
Anyway, so on this battle, we find out you can see something very important if you hover over Elenia, but it's that she has the Twilight Rune, and that's why earlier we see Jean and Elenia being tasked to go to the West Palace where the Twilight Rune is kept, and it's quite a cool little detail because you don't really think about the Twilight Rune before this point. Like, you know it exists, but you never thought it would come to play. At least I didn't when I first played this, and I was like, oh yeah, there is a Twilight Rune.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really any mention of it for almost 20 hours, really. So it makes sense.
And Elenia uses it on the battlefield, and I think Lucretia or Zarasi or someone says that it was flashy, but it wasn't like it didn't turn the tide of the battle or anything. Whether that's to do with the fact that Elenia isn't very good at using the Twilight Rune, or she isn't supposed to be using it, or
it was because the runes end up choosing the people. So if you're not compatible with the rune itself, the rune will not use its full power because it's like, you're not meant for me.
Which is shown in the battle with Elenia when she takes her at, when she can only basically use the level 1 spell. She only uses basically Wind of Sleep.
Yeah.
It's basically what it is. It's just Wind of Sleep. It's quite a fun sequence. The Dorat siege and the events of Dorat always stick out in my mind as a big part of the game. It's quite a cool part of the game.
Right, and I always think that with the Twilight Rune scenario with Elenia, it's because the way I always see it is that the reason why Silas and Leon were chosen as the Twilight Rune Bearer was because they held no hostility towards the Dawn Rune Bearer. The Dawn and the Twilight they're not against each other. They're always trying to work together to pretty much mitigate the effects of the Sun Rune, whereas Elenia's intentions were to kill the prince. Right. Hence, the Twilight Rune was like, I can't use this because the Dawn Rune is right there, and I am not going to eliminate the other Rune Bearer.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
I always thought about that.
That's cool. Yeah,
I never thought of that. Yeah. But after you defeat Elenia, we go down to the basement, and this is where we have a quite sad fight against Miyakis, who was tasked to go with Elenia. So we have a duel with her. Yeah, it's quite sad. I was worried we were going to kill Miyake's when it happened. When I
Oh
first
my
played
gosh.
Oh yeah, I would have never forgiven this game. I would have turned it off and never played it again.
No,
So
Yeah. I was like, oh
I would've
jeez,
been-
no one's died yet. It's a Suikoden game. And they're making me do the sad fight because all I think about is Pan when I do these duels.
and
Yeah.
McDole. Yeah.
McDole, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, they could do it. They could kill off this great character.
Oh yeah, no, I was full on believing that nope, Miyuki is about to die, and I'm about to be like, this is over. Don't need to know what happens next.
And the reason Miyake's doesn't, just side with us immediately is she felt like the Queen's Knights were basically all she had left.
Right.
It's her identity. It's all she knows. So to turn against that would basically be saying she has nothing to live for, which is a bit too painful for her to face, especially since she's been with Lim and the sad stuff happening around Lim all this time. So I think this time she was just hoping, she was just clutching at whatever she could clutch to at that point. But after her defeat, she does join us, and she's our chipper, happy self, which I'm glad.
Right.
Me too.
Right. And you get an understanding as to why she didn't try to attempt to escape compared to Kyle, who did.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're like, okay, if Kyle was able to escape, and I know she stayed behind for the princess, but Miyake's is really strong. I always wondered why she didn't try to, help the princess escape and like run away and stuff like that. But then it really shows that she was always torn inside because it's like, yeah, this is all happening, but this is still my duty.
I think it's the information that we discover in a moment here. I know we're maybe moving ahead partially here, but that she watched George Prime kill the Queen. And so from her perspective, if George Prime is working with the prince, then she doesn't really know who to trust at that point.
Exactly.
So that makes sense to me in terms of also part of why she would have stayed, and not because if she escapes at that point, where is she going to go? Is she going to take him to the prince and George Prime, who kills Arstadt? I mean, I think that would be a difficult choice for her.
Time to talk about that whole sequence, actually.
When do you actually learn about that, George?
It's immediately when you bring Miyake's back to the castle, and then she sees George and she tries to kill him.
Yes, but then you get the whole story when you recruit Galleon. He tells you the full story. You only get the scene where George stabs Arstadt when you recruit Miyake's, and then when you get Galleon, it shows the whole thing. But we'll just talk about the whole sequence. And in its full. So I love this sequence.
Oh yeah,
it's
amazing.
A highlight of the game, honestly. So back when we were talking about Solfalena being taken over by the Godwins, we meet George as we're escaping, and we're told that Ferid and Arstadt are dead, and George is clearly quite cut up about it. And what Miyake's tells us when we recruit her is that George actually did kill Arstadt. So in a way, the rumours that the Godwin's spreading are in fact true to a degree. George did do it, but later on when you recruit Galleon, he tells you the full story, which is basically that Arstadt was taken over by the Sun Rune at that point. Yeah. She was basically going to lay waste to the Hall of Helena. And Ferid probably knew this was going to happen eventually and recruited George, a very trusted friend, to kill Arstadt if he himself could not bring himself to do it. Which is such a sad thought, honestly. Ferid is a great character, and so is Arstadt. I really love them both. And you really felt for how terrible their situation and how they felt like there was no way out.
Yeah, when you after George stabs Arstadt and she's looking at Ferid, just like that level of I mean, it's one of the best sequences in all of the series.
Yeah,
it's stunning. I think it's the best scene in this game, honestly.
I think I would agree, and also you really get to see the Sun Rune do its work. Another tidbit is Arstadt actually kills Ferid herself.
Yes, indeed.
It's so tragic. She at this point she's like killing. She sees an archer about to shoot Ferid, and she uses the Sun Rune to basically instantly, she makes a bubble around him, and then in that bubble he just disintegrates. Completely, instantly dead. That sort of triggers the awakening of the Sun Rune, and she starts to use it on everything.
Yeah, where she would do the bubble, and then it would disappear, was the bubble itself was the Sun Rune. It's the Sun Rune's power of extracting all the water out of a person.
Oh.
And then that's why they disappear, is because
it
it
just
literally
evaporate.
Right. That's why. And so, because that's what it does. And so that's why I always thought that scene with that whole thing, I was like, oh my god, that's the Sun Rune's true power. Is like,
I was like, I wonder if this is a level 1 spell or a level 2 spell.
she has a magic absorb rune on, and she can keep using the level 4 spell over and over again.
The level 4 spell is obviously the destruction of an entire country. Lord Blake is maybe a level 2 spell. Yeah, so Ferid's like, she's completely gone loco at this point, and Ferid's like trying to go up to her and shake her out of it, but the Sun Rune's to take control now, and she just uses it on Ferid, and she, as soon as she casts a spell, you can see that she knows what's happened, and she tries to stop it, but it's already happening, and Ferid disintegrates before her eyes, and that just breaks her, basically.
Yeah.
It breaks her mind, and then that's when she decides she's going to destroy everything. And that's when George knows he has no choice. Ferid's dead, and it's up to him to take care of Arshtat, and he kills her. And that's when Miyakis runs in, worst timing, and just thinks that George killed Arshtat and betrayed them. And that is the lead up to the whole game, basically, and it's such a good scene.
Mm-hmm.
I really love it. Any thoughts we want to add before we move on?
I mean, the worst part is that it causes George to leave your party for like the second half of the game.
Right? So
They always make every excuse they can in this game to not have George in your party.
I stubbed my toe. I can't be in your party right now.
I'm too OP.
I know. I was like, I need him in my party because I like him in my party.
My George has like 600 attack right now. I need him.
Yeah,
I know. I was like, George is like insta-kill for most of these. Like, yeah, I need this for myself.
After we recruit Miyakis, we cut to back in Solfalena, and it's a discussion between Lemslia, who her coronation has happened at this point. You see all the foreign dignitaries of the world sort of come to her coronation. Haswar crowns her, and she's now queen. So she's sitting on the throne, talking to Gazelle, Elenia, Zahak. They're basically talking about mounting an offense against the prince. And Lemsey is like, I'm going to be on the front lines, basically.
Yeah.
Did any of us find it weird that they were just, like, following her orders at this point? Like, they were just themselves.
I mean, I think that they had the plan at this point that they end up executing. And I mean, I think it's strange, but it's not really all that different from the prince literally always going to do all the things.
Yeah.
Like your most important figure is always on the front lines. And she's pretty forceful about it. And I think that the Godwins know that they're sort of have a delicate balancing act with her.
Yeah.
But really, I think that ultimately the plan with Stylides is they have that in place, and they know that this is the best way to do that thing.
Stylides had a discussion with Dolph at this point, at least a couple of times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why they did let her, because they were like, no, we have our ace in our sleeve, or, you know.
I agree, and I think also maybe just Gazelle's like saying, oh, that sounds funny, let's see how that turns out.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. He did it for the lols, always.
Yeah, he did it for the lols.
Oh my god, Gazelle is just
would be on 4chan so much, guys. Like, Gazelle is like would totally be on Fellaini and 4chan. So yeah, we have a war battle. It's called the Queen's Campaign. The entire Solfalena, everybody's there. So who's Zach, Elenia, Gallian, Lemsley is there. Everyone but Gazelle. Gazelle doesn't go.
Because he has to stay back.
Yeah, just has to. Just has to. I'd love to go to war, guys, but there's so much paperwork. I kind of like Gazelle, to be honest. Anyway, and so obviously Lim's whole plan here is basically, if I'm on the front lines, my brother could just grab me, and we can just get out of here. She is still a child. She, in her mind, I imagine she's just thinking, the closer I am to my brother, the better.
Right.
And in a way, that is what happens. We defeat the army, and we sort of have a plan using Roy and Zarase and like a bunch of. We split into 3 groups basically.
Yeah.
And we use distraction techniques to separate Limslea from her guards, and we sort of swipe in, and we can rescue her. And it seems to be going so well. So well. Until we have we're just about to hug Limsley. We're like so close. We're doing the slow motion Baywatch run towards her. Brother! But
it's so annoying.
Yeah. Brother! A combination of Dolph and Siledes interrupts us. Dolph tries to stab the prince, but Leon pushes him out the way and gets stabbed herself with, I assume, as some sort of poisoned dagger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she leaks sparkles. I mean, it's supposed to be blood, but obviously it was censored for ratings.
Danganronpa's pink.
What's better, sparkles or pink? But also Siledes just grabs Limsia, and this is where we can learn that Siledes is basically working with the Godwins now. She's going to take Limsley back to them, and we know, and we're kind of against the clock here because we've got Leon dying on the floor and Siledes kidnapping Limsley, and she's using her wind rune to like basically make her escape with Limsley.
Yeah.
Oh, this part, I remember the first time when I got to this part when I first played it. Oh my god, I was pissed. I was
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not see this come. Well, you see it coming, but then you don't see it to this extent.
See it. I mean, I thought I was like, Siledes, what are you doing? But I didn't in my head truly believe that Siledes was gonna.
Yeah, she trails off a lot in the last like 5 hours. Very like Joey. Again, this is the Joey moment. Like when she trails off, she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not sure about that."
Yeah,
like I mean, like I think that they telegraph it, knowing that it's coming. I'm like, oh, it's so obvious. But like when I first played it, I don't think that I remember that I called this at all because it didn't make a lot of sense to me.
I was gonna say, see, I started catching on the first time when Lucretia. I told you, I trust that girl with everything. Like,
yes.
Like when she was talking to Siledes and she was like, and I was like, why do I feel like I know Siledes hates her, but then this is the point where I'm like, why is Lucretia kind of like hesitant? And like,
yeah.
And so I was like, oh no. And then when it actually happens, I was like, I didn't even want to say the word because I was pissed.
Yeah, it's such. I think it's just the moment is just designed to make you angry at Siledes at this point because you're so close. It doesn't give you the satisfaction.
You think it's the final battle. Everyone says this is the final battle.
You even have the little scene the night before where you can run around your entire castle and talk to everyone.
Yeah.
So the game truly does try its best to make you think that's
this is it.
And it's so much longer than the other Suikoden games that I totally bought it. I think the first time I played it.
Yeah.
Although the fact that you don't have even close to 108 characters should have given it away.
Yeah.
I guess if you were like not thinking about it or not following a guide or really, you can be mistaken to like believe it. But if you're like looking at the sort of, I only have 80 characters. I've got another 28 to go or whatever.
Right, but the thing is, they don't even provide you with a tablet of the stars until the very end, which is why I was wondering why they didn't do that, because usually you get that pretty early.
Yes.
But then I was like, why don't you give me it so I know who I'm missing?
Yes.
And then it's because of that. This because of the whole thing is that they don't want you to know.
No, they don't want
because
you to
it's know. Like, yeah, I was like, holy cow! Like, I was like, am I done? Like,
nope. So sort of failed in our mission. In a way here, Limbs is still
the Godwins,
and but we did defeat a fair chunk of their forces at this point. I mean, they're definitely on the back foot now. The Godwins are definitely on the back foot. It's just the sort of like why you're thinking at the time, why would Siledes join what seems to be the losing side right now?
Yeah, it's like, why is she? What is her motive? Like, what is she? Why is she doing this? And then that's pretty much. Honestly, what kind of got me through this next part of the game because I really wanted to know the first time.
You really wanted to know, yeah.
So, that was what I cared about more. So.
Yeah. So we also have Leon dying, and we get the Dawn rune, which activates and sort of stabilizes her, but doesn't heal her. So she's still unconscious, but the Dawn rune saved her life. But we need to find a way to completely heal her, and that involves unlocking the next spell in the Dawn rune's arsenal. Which is Ray of Light or something like that. No,
I think so,
Dawn. First Dawn. I don't remember.
First.
The level 3 spell.
The level 3 one. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. But Lucretia, to do that, we'd have to go to the Deep Twilight Ruins, and Lucretia's like, you can't just go there for just Leon, because that kind of looks selfish and that it would make you look bad in your army if you just sort of delayed the whole campaign just to save your friend. But she does set you up in such a way that you could visit the ruins and still seem to be on official business, and that's to go to Sarnik's castle and meet up with the Dragon Cavalry. Yes, and meet with Craig Ladden, something like that, who is the leader of the Dragon Cavalry, and this is also Miyake's hometown, and she wanted to be a Dragon Knight, but because of sexist practices, she could not be a Dragon Knight. Which is fun. I like going to all the Queen's Knights hometowns and getting to learn about it. It's a fun little detail. And you also even Galleon gets a sort of past with Dr. Silva and stuff and Lord Lake.
Right.
I quite enjoyed the sort of detail of this game. Even Josephine is an Arms Kingdoms character. So even Josephine gets a little backstory.
yeah, it's definitely the strength of this game is how much they fill out all the characters by far.
Yeah,
definitely. And also just you meet all the characters before you really recruit them, and you spend a long time with them. So everyone feels like they're not just, hi, I'm joining your army, like a lot of past Suikodens could be guilty of. Especially the earlier ones. But Craig says that unless there's a foreign influence, a foreign army, we can't take part in internal disputes. So basically we're like, well, ain't nothing we can do. Let's go hit the Twilight Ruins. We'll get that spell, and that's what we do. We get the level 3 spell, and we can heal Leon. When we're there, after that event, this is the events where we have to decide whether, I think this is where we learn that Godwins have sided with arms.
Yeah.
And they're basically gonna be invading. So obviously, your first thought at this point is well, that works out. We can finally get the Dragon Cavalry. But it's also bad for us because they kind of just are attacking a bunch of different towns at the same time that we on. They're going to Estrais and Sable, and
right?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe another place, Lord Lake, maybe something like that.
Was it Lelkar? I forgot.
Lelkar, something like that.
I think they take Barat back too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so they're just they're using this newfound army to just take a bunch of different places. And also they're coming for our headquarters. Right. And Lucretia basically says, we can make a tactical retreat right now, or we can defend our castle. And as a Suikoden player, you're always like, my castle is the most important thing in the world. This is my baby, I ain't leaving it. So the first time I played this game, I defended the castle.
Oh, did you? That's awesome. I'm glad one of us did.
Yeah.
Not this time, but when I first played this game, I defended the castle. And what happens if you defend the castle is Lucretia makes up a sort of secondary plan where she's like, okay, you get out of here, Roy will stay as your double. His death will sort of make the Godwins believe that you died and they're winning, but basically we're still alive and can continue the plot that way. And it's basically just the plot continues, but Roy is dead, which is a shame because Roy's a great character.
Yeah,
and it's a really sad scene where Roy is basically fighting Kildrick, and Kildrick stabs him and he dies.
See,
at least the game makes it obvious that you should flee, I think.
Oh, yeah,
you have to say, I want to defend 3 times or something, and she's like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Are you sure?
Are you sure?
They tried their best, but me, just loving my Suikoden castle so much, I'm like, no. I actually thought, they keep asking me. They don't want me to stay. Thus, the right answer and the true ending answer is to stick with my guns. So it was it worked opposite in my mind. Anyway, it's just me being dumb.
If Roy dies, that prevents you from getting the true ending.
It does.
Right?
You don't have 108 stars, so you can get completely locked out of the true ending at that point.
Yeah. See, lesson learned in Suikoden 5. Trust Lucretia anyways.
In Suikoden 5, trust your tactician no matter what.
No matter
never.
what.
Sorry, I just I smacked myself in the face. I was too animated. I slapped myself in the face. Anyway. Whoops. Yeah, always trust your Suikoden tactician. You guys talk me through what if you decide to leave the castle?
You pretty much pack up all your stuff, and I forget where you end up. Oh, you go to the dwarf camp, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you end up being there for a bit, and then the story continues on to. Then you try to find out why the cavalry aren't joining.
Yes, even though they just told us we only get part if there's a foreign army invading, and here's a foreign army invading, and they still ain't moving. And so I think was it Lucretia says,
yeah,
the Godwins got to them first.
Yeah, she's like the Godwins got to them 1st, and then you have to find out why they're not they're agreeing, and so you go back to Saronic's castle, and then Craig doesn't want to talk to you. And so it ends up being Rog and Pretty Boy. What's his name?
Rahal.
Rahal. There you go. I was like, I just remember him as like the guy that all the women like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the men do too later too.
Yeah.
So. Oh yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That scene.
Iconic.
And so yeah, that's pretty much like that's what happens if you do choose. It kind of just skips over all the castle stuff because you're not even there.
Yeah, so you do have your little castle shops and everything there, but it's not the same.
Right, and then I think everyone disperses out for a bit too. They go back to their own hometowns. I forget if Lucretia sends some of them back to where they used to live for a bit, and then they all regroup back. I forget which, or I think that was I'm mixing up one of them.
I think that was earlier in the plot where they all go back to their hometowns for a bit. I think it's the night before the Queen's campaign.
Oh yeah, that was the Queen's campaign where they did go back. Oh, just kidding. But yeah,
that's also, yes.
Yeah. So then you end up going to Gordius after this. Then and then you're trying to find, and then you meet up with George.
Oh yeah, George. Yeah, he does help you. Zach,
because then
Zach, why don't you talk us through what Gordius' deal is?
Well, Gordius is a men's-only town, which I think is first mentioned in Suikoden 2 or 3 at some point. But it's
right?
but yeah, I believe so. But it is a town where the dragon cavalry, where they keep the eggs and they keep the dragons, and also where they go through training. And it's only men, of course, because only men are allowed to be in the dragon cavalry. But you find out the reason why we can't, why the dragon cavalry won't join us is that the Godwins are stationed in Gordius and they're threatening to destroy the dragon eggs, which would be devastating to the dragon cavalry. And it's sort of like is keeping Craig in place. And George discovers this, and he's the one who sort of sets it in motion and prevents Dolph from destroying all of the dragon eggs.
And it's a similar sort of situation, I think, to what happened in Suikoden 1 with the dragon eggs.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. Joshua.
Completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
I just thought about it now. Like,
it's a pattern of this game.
a little callback there, I think.
Yeah.
Or that happens in the future, but it's
in the future. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, it happens like 15 years later, 10 years later. I don't know.
Something like that. But yeah, the events at Gordius is like, as you said, the dragon eggs are held captive, and they're too precious to basically go against the Godwins. Like if the dragon cavalry lost their eggs, that would be at the end of the dragon cavalry. But we do thwart that, and eventually the dragon cavalry are able to help us, and we can drive back the arms invasion. And that happens a battle. So we can either have another battle, and we can decide who we want to attack. Are we back in our castle at this point?
Yes. So shortly after this, we decide to go back to the ruins originally and
how
open
do we get there, Zach? Everyone's full of Godwins.
I don't remember.
Oh, right. And Lucretia basically floods them out.
Yes. Yeah.
She gets us to go to the sluice gate, and we basically open the floods, and it basically floods the entire place, and they drown.
Yes, pretty much. That's why she was. I think that's why she said earlier to make sure you take all like the perishable stuff, like things that get destroyed in water.
Yeah.
Which eludes her plan already. But then I was like, that's really clever.
Yeah, it was quite clever. But continue. So, what were you saying, Zach?
Oh, just that after we get our castle back, then we have to decide. We have to sort of go and get the things back that we had already lost. But at that point, our arms, after the castle is flooded, is starting to become like, I'm not sure that this was the right move for us. And so I think I think I did the Durat battle, if I'm not mistaken.
I did the Durat battle.
I did Durat too.
Oh, well, that's great. We should
well. But they also like sort of abandoned them halfway through the battle, if I remember correctly. So
I think the Durat battle might be more interesting.
I just thought it fit the story more because you get Baram and Raha's.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, a touching scene there.
Because I mean Raha's line with a student should never die before their teacher.
It's so sad because Raja is such a tough character.
Right.
That you feel yeah.
And I think what it sucks more because the story really plays on Baram's character all throughout, where he at first he was fully supported, but now it's like he can tell his ambivalence towards his cause, and he's like, I don't know if this is right anymore, but I still want to cling on to that hope that what I'm doing is for the right reasons.
Yeah, he definitely is on board with the Godwin ideology. He has he does believe in that militaristic authoritarian sort of ideology that the Godwins have, but
Kilderic in particular is a problem for him.
Kilderic is like
Dilbert and Baram feel like that Kilderic is just insane, basically, and they're starting to have doubts about what they're doing, and Kilderic definitely isn't helping it. If Kilderic just wasn't there, I think they would have been a lot more successful. Kilderic was definitely a poor choice in a general.
I really don't know. I don't know why a Gazelle chose. It was just
for the
weird.
lulz. It must have just been for the lulz.
Again, well, I mean, I think that he is brutal enough that because I think at that point Godwin or Gazelle thinks that he's losing. I mean, he is, but he thinks that the way to deal with it is brutality. He's wrong, but I think that's he just doesn't think that his generals have what it takes to get it done, and so he thinks Kilderic is the right call. He's not, of course, but yeah.
So we all did the scene in Dorat, so we all saw that Baram basically sacrifices himself to save the rest of his fleet, and we kill him. You have a touching scene with Raja, where he's like, I'm sorry, I failed, master, whatever, and Raja's as Triss said, should never die before their teacher. You get it's quite a touching scene for a quite tough character like Raja.
Yeah.
So you guys will have to fill me in on what happens from this point on, because I spent too long faffing around the castle and talking to everyone. Even though I have played 80 hours of this game to 100 hours, I can't remember. I didn't finish this game.
Well, we're pretty close to the end at this point. We've only got really three major events at this point. A lot of things happen, but you're close. I promise, Leona.
Yeah, I have played this game many times before, so none of this is new to me. It's just I don't know the finer minutia
details.
Yeah. So
I mean, after this, you just get the arms people in your side, like the Sharmista.
Oh yeah, Shulav.
And so I mean, the reason why is because Arms wants to improve relations in the end. They want their they're not all about.
Do you think Suikoden 6 was going to have a lot more arms in it? I got the feeling Suikoden 6. Do you imagine if they had a Suikoden 6 that would maybe would have taken place in Arms?
I don't even know, because then it's hard because I don't know if the Arms Empire would still be around depending on where they place it, because it's I would have honestly hoped for Sindar or Harmonia at that point, because Suikoden 3 was literally leading up to Harmonia.
Yes.
And I would have been...
That was definitely the dream, wasn't it? That we would go
because Harmonia was the main cause of all this, and you have the rule of the Rune of Change.
Yeah.
And so I think I was like, I don't know if Arms. I wish I would have loved that, and I would have wanted Kalakan. I think because there's a lot of main people from there. I mean, you have Belcoop, but then there's other people from the other series that were also from there.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
And so, and then you have the elves, which you never find about their place too. You have Orya and Isato from that one village, and you don't know. Yeah,
there's so many options. Just give me anything. Just give me Suikoden 6.
This is our official petition.
Yeah, I was like, there's so many ways you can go about with this. Like, please.
I just thought they were trying. Like, they made like everyone you meet from ARMS, as in the evil people that you were led to believe at the very start of the game, what ARMS was. Like even Gavaya or Nakula, all these ARMS people are basically not that bad. You have the bad generals like everybody else, like Gisu and I can't remember the woman.
Jidan.
Yeah,
oh.
there was a woman that I can't remember her name, who was quite bad as well. Yeah, it was just a thought I had. So do we decide to tackle Stormfist? Is that
So
this is where we are.
That's how things have to end. That we have to go to Stormfist in order to
which is
put this down.
The Godwin hometown.
Mm-hmm.
She wouldn't have to, but she realizes at that point that there's no other possibility. And as you're going into Stormfist, you realize that Sileeds has taken on the Twilight Rune because, or you don't realize that she's taken on the Twilight Rune yet. But whoever is using the Twilight Rune at that point is clearly much more powerful than Elenia,
right?
Because it actually like hurts you when you're trying to go in, and then you actually get into Stormfist and you realize that Sileeds is the one who has the Twilight Rune.
Yes, and you get in with the help of your trusty friend Shun.
Oh yeah, back from the beginning.
You get back all the way, and I think he is the last star you can recruit if you didn't recruit Arash.
For me, it was Urim. So
for you,
I had one left.
Yeah, and so you get in, and then you pretty much take over Stormfist at this point, and then this is where you can finally kill Kilderic, thank God, because he was getting on my nerves.
One of the things I love about the Kilderic duel is that you have a lot of options for different people who can fight Kilderic. So I didn't have Belkut in my party. I wish I had. That would have been cool. I think that I didn't have Zagai either, but I did have Richard, who I don't remember seeing in the games, but apparently he was. So you get to use him, and
he was there in the Sacred Games.
Yes.
Oh yeah, because he was ashamed of losing, and that's why he ran away from his boy Muller.
Yes.
But it was cool to have Richard in the duel against him. So I used Richard, and just like he's so ridiculous in the things he says, it was really fun to use him in the duel.
I ended up using I used Belkut and Richard like regularly, and I remember I had Zagai because I remember that scene. I fought with Zagai the first time. So then I was like, oh, and then I didn't know that Richard and Belkut were also options. So they think between my scene, it was Belkut and Zagai I could choose from, and they fought against each other. They're telling you who should fight them. It's like Zagai is like, no, we never got to fight, and then Belkut's like, no, we never got to fight either because.
That's awesome.
And then you guys like, so Prince, who do you choose? And I chose Belkut. I was like, nope, I want to finish this off with Belkut because he was in the finals.
I think Belkut feels like the best option. I just totally forgot to bring him along with me. I usually had him in my party, but for whatever reason, I didn't for that fight.
Is this where you see Sileeds got her natural hair color here?
Yes,
he does.
This is where
she's full gray at this point.
Which is a sort of like strange thing to say as a twist, but it is a twist. Is that
she dyed her hair?
She has blonde. Yes, it's kind of presented as a twist.
It's like, oh, this is my natural hair color. That's supposed to be surprising. It's what like everyone's hair color is in this family.
Exactly.
See, this is what I'm like wondering is because you have Limsley. I mean, I know it's because probably he has Faird's genes, but Limsley has brown hair, and I was like, wait.
Everyone in the game always tells you took after your mother. You look just like your mother. Yeah, I imagine Limsley hears a lot. You look just like your father.
Yeah, I think so. Even her personality is much more like Faird's, I think.
Yeah, you can definitely see the sort of differences in the siblings.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just find it funny that it's like this year and it's like, I have dyed my hair.
I mean, and during the fight, she just says like, well, it's not time to kill you yet, and she doesn't say anything else, and then she just pieces out.
Yeah.
So you don't really get much information from her.
You're not getting the closure you were hoping.
Yeah.
Well, then, and it kind of confuses you because she kills everybody else but you. Let's put it that way. You're surrounded by all these Godwin soldiers at this point, and you thought you're going to die. But then Sileeds is like, nope, let me rain down destruction right here. And then you're left with just Kilderic.
You're left with such a feeling like, whose side are you on? What is the plan here? I don't understand.
I mean, at this point, I can see, with the first time I played, I was like, okay, I know I think I have an idea what you're trying to do.
Okay.
But I don't want to get my hopes up because
You're smarter
Yeah.
than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I can see what you're trying to do, but it's like,
Mhm.
is this the best way to do this? Like,
Yeah.
no.
So after Stormfest and Silex is retreated,
Yeah,
there's only one
they all
place
get
left to go,
away.
really. There's only one place left, and that's
Solfelena.
Solfelena.
Well, no, you go back to Godwin Castle after this, don't you?
Stormfist and Godwin Castle are both like part of the same stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, well, Dilbert dies in Godwin Castle. That's
Oh,
well.
right, yeah. Dilbert is like the general. I don't want to say he's a boring character, but I always kind of consider him a bit of a boring character.
He's a boring character.
Yeah, he's a boring character.
yeah. No, I mean, I didn't feel any like remorse when I killed him off. I was like,
Not really.
peace, bye, thank you for.
So, yeah. He's also called Dilbert, and he looks weird. I don't know. He looks like a dad.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But not like in a cool way.
No, no.
I think this is where I was a bit disappointed with the writing because like they kept building up, Boz and Dilbert type of fight, and you never get that. Like it's they work together at one of the battles, but it's like I wish the game did more with his character because I felt like he had a lot of potential, but I felt like this is where I feel like the writing got lazy. And I felt really bad.
But you know what? This game is so filled with great writing, I can just forgive it, I think.
Yeah,
I think so. It's like you kind of have to have not so fleshed out characters sometimes.
I mean, there's only one unforgivable character that I can think of in this game, but we'll get to it at the end. you guys are all interested to find out who I hate, aren't you? Anyway, so what happens in Solfelena?
This is where Zach might need to come in because this is where you can actually it's the night before, and this is where you can recruit Urim, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is the moment at which you have to do it before you go to Solfelena, otherwise, because the standard Leknot shows up. 108 stars have gathered, blah blah blah. But Urim, if you go back to Rainwall at this point, because we didn't talk about this, but we see a scene earlier where Silex murders
Salem Barrows.
Salem Barrows.
Yeah, that was cold.
But she leaves Urim alive because she says, "You will destroy this family because you are such an ineffective twit that you can't do anything." And she's not wrong.
No, God, she's so iconic.
I know, right? She is an icon. But so she leaves him alive. She uses the Twilight Rune to kill Salem, and then after that, if you go to Rainwall, which you have access to again now because the Godwin forces have pulled out, he will basically just be like super upset with you, and then his sister shows up, who is what's her name again? Lucerina. And she says, you're not lost. You could have done this, and you have to kind of follow upstairs, and you have to forgive Urim, which is probably not maybe what I wanted to do. And then his character portrait changes, and he starts to become very apologetic and understanding what it is that he did. And it actually it works surprisingly well. And then when he goes back to your castle with you, he becomes. Even like other people around the castle will say like, "Oh, I'm not really so sure about you bringing Urim back here," but it seems like he's really sorry.
Yeah,
and it's nice closure for his character. Definitely. But do I necessarily buy it? I don't know, but it works actually.
Yeah, can you use him in a fight, or is he just?
No, he has like a rumors ability in major battles, but it's kind of useless. I mean, Aresh, who is the other character you can recruit instead, is 1,000 times more useful. But it takes probably an hour and a half to recruit Aresh, and it takes somewhere in the range of 3 minutes to recruit Urim. And because this game still took me 65 hours to beat, I was going to go with the 3-minute recruit.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I mean that's nice to know that Urim that does get that thing, because I always wondered, because I don't think I've ever done Urim's route, just because Aresh's dungeon was pretty nice, and I was like, I need to get that book there and all the other stuff, so I always did Aresh's dungeon.
You can do Aresh's dungeon, but just leave before the boss.
After yeah, I always think that, but I'm like, no, I'm already there. Might as well just finish this because I'm not gonna go back. And so and then I always wondered about the Barrows, because the mother never leaves the room, don't know what's up with her, and it's like and then honestly,
I think
don't know.
There's some indication that she, because one of the Barrows' children is assassinated by Nethergate earlier, right?
Yeah,
right.
I think that was a reaction to that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think she just got depression and doesn't leave her room.
But see, it's really just a hard, because then you think that if that's the case, you'd be so much more overprotective over your children. But then Lucerina's out here fighting in the
Yeah, I
in
think
the
there's all different
store,
ways you can react
and
to
you
losing your
have
child.
Urim who's literally doing pretty much the same, and it's like, is she even alive? Like, I was really
I
wondering
think
that.
she's
Like,
definitely alive. I just think she's maybe.
Yeah, Urim says like, I talked to mother and she
Yeah.
said it's okay if I. That's what happens when you recruit him.
okay, yeah, and then Lucerina's and another thing is like Lucerina's character has always been a bit off for me. Like,
She's
it's like,
just
how
so
can you
different.
be okay with all of this?
I just find it always weird that she was so different,
I think so. I think, but it's like, it's just like, do you not have any attachment to your own like family? Like,
maybe that's just the fact that in aristocracy you tend to have less familial ties than maybe like a commoner would have. You're less close to your family members because even when you're part of the aristocracy, it's like you're still filling a role. So your dad is kind of your boss, and your brother might be your boss as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's just because it's so different compared to how you have, the whole character's family. It's like so close. You have Sileads helping out. You have Arsh. They all really help each other, and they're pretty much the highest form of aristocracy. So it's like to have these type of. I know it's like they're kind of like the exception.
But even then, like Arshtat had to be like basically alone with the prince, and like even then you could tend to tell that the prince wasn't expecting a hug from his mum. Like there was sort of a formality there.
Yeah,
that was quite like unexpected to get that hug from Arshtat the way it was. So it was like even then, I think. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Those were just one of those things that I was like,
definitely
interesting. Yeah, and then after that, it is Solfelina time.
Yeah. So is it? It says here, "Dam destruction." Do we have to? Do you have to? Blow our way into Solfelina?
Well, I think actually what happens is that the Sileads is planning, as you are invading Solfelina, Sileads is planning to use the Twilight Rune to destroy the dam, which, as you discover later, was actually her way of sort of running interference on the Sun Rune being used in that circumstance.
Right.
Interesting.
And you get her real motives at that point is that you realize that she kind of was helping you. She like when Lucretia already like said, I think once or twice, that she didn't deflect. She didn't betray you, and of course you trust Lucretia, and but then at this point it's kind of like you wonder if what she was doing was like the right way to do it.
I always thought the way Sileads worked was she had kind of two motivations. One was to sort of help the prince in some way. Like she definitely didn't want to harm the prince, but I think she wanted to reform the aristocracy. That was, to me, the central core of her character. She hated to have factions like the Barrows and the Godwins, and she could if Felina was going to move forward without history just repeating itself,
right?
She
it's because she knew
you should have to destroy the way the things work right now.
Right. It's because she knew that if the whole war ended with the Queen's campaign, it wouldn't solve anything because these players are still in the field.
Yeah.
Just because the whole point of the war wasn't necessarily getting the Queen. It was making sure that all these little, weeds were picked out. And I think that's
that was her point, at least.
Yeah.
Right. That was her point. It's because she's so jaded by the aristocracy at this point that she is like, I can't, I will make sure that my niece and nephew.
Frustrated as the game goes on. Like, you see the development of her disliking the aristocracy. I also think her defecting to the Godwins was a sort of way to, when she destroys the aristocracy and maybe it brings in like a sort of new way to do things, the prince wouldn't be blamed for it. She was working with the Godwins. All the blame would be put on Sileads. I think she was willing to martyr herself for that, to protect the prince from that.
Right, it's because if they do take over and they start getting rid of this, the support would be low because the aristocracy kind of still rule, and if she doesn't get rid of it, then the prince and the princess will have to.
Yeah.
And so she was like, "No, I'm gonna be the aunt and do all the dirty work." And we already know that this is where she dies.
Yeah,
but then one of Lucretia's final words was like, you weren't much more different than the Godwins.
Right. And that's what Lucretia says to her. And I'm not sure that I necessarily disagree, but her plan, I'm never really 100% clear on what her plan I understand what her end goal was, but like how she was actually trying to accomplish it.
Yeah.
Like she just seems to be running interference a lot, but it's not, like I don't know if like her plan was like I have to put the Godwins in front of someone else. Like how was she actually planning to take the Godwins out? It's never clear to me.
Oh, I think it's because her plan was to get too close to the Godwins because she needed the Twilight Rune. I think she knew that was the other key that if she was able to get that, and she knew that the Sun Rune could only be stopped at this point by the Twilight Rune and the Dawn Rune because she was there when I think Zarase was talking about it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what her plan was to be the person that's like, okay, let me get this so I can get this for you. So that when you the Sun Rune does come into play, you'll have both runes at this point. It's like and then but at the meantime, I can also accomplish my own plans using the Twilight Rune.
Yeah.
And so it was like killing so many birds with one stone for her. And that's why she did the plan that she did, which is to get close to the Godwins because she knew that she can use that to her advantage in the end.
Fair enough. I mean, what is she waiting for though? I mean, like, why doesn't she kill Giselle and Marskell earlier then? Now that she has the Twilight Rune.
Well,
I think she doesn't want to be seen as siding with the prince, so if she just killed Giselle and let the prince just walk into a liberated city, he would be blamed for the fall of the aristocracy and all those murders.
Okay, that makes sense.
She would be seen as an assassin sent by the prince rather than a Godwin.
Fair enough. That makes sense. Okay.
She's a complicated character. Exactly. She's incredibly complex, and I love Xyleid so much.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah. Right. And to go off of that, she wanted to make sure that it ends as a war battle instead of like an underhanded assassination.
Yeah, because I think she's had enough of assassinations in her life.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And it's sort of seen differently from the public at large as well as a result of that. So
exactly.
That makes sense.
The more people involved, the more the word can spread, sort of thing. So yeah, and this is as you said, where Xyleid dies, and I'm not okay with it.
I cried. This is where I lost it in the first.
It is very sad. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the second most effective moment in this game, and it's also like right before that, she and the prince had to combine the powers of the two runes in order to hold the Sun Rune back.
Yeah,
and it's given that had just happened, it's like a really beautiful moment.
Yeah,
and then her dying immediately after is deeply sad.
Oh my God.
And I'm not gonna lie, this is where I was hoping what was gonna be the result of, when you get all 108, like Xyleid would be the one. Yeah, I was really pulling for it because I was like, no, you can't die because George Prime and you need to end up together because at this point I am rooting for you guys.
That is a relationship I can get behind.
I never even considered that.
Yeah.
What?
I mean, if it's not going to be me, it can be George.
I just think I was like, no, during my first playthrough, I was like, no, once you get 108, she'll be fine. I was like, I need to just keep going at this point. That's not what happens, but I was like, oh yeah, no. I was really devastated when she dies, and kind of takes you. You see it coming at this point, but you wish you didn't.
Definitely.
And then after that, it's the Sun Rune gets used, right?
Leon inherits the Twilight Rune from.
Yeah.
It's like, thank God, because goddamn, she only had one rune for so long, and
I know.
I need that extra rune slot.
And see, I never used Leon because like she was just okay, but I feel like Miyake's is always a better version of Leon.
I just use them both.
And I just was like, and then I did use Leon. We kind of have to.
I like Leon. I really don't mind her. She has quite a powerful character, to be honest. But
I just think I've always found Leon kind of not my favorite. So I never really. I was like, I don't need you in my party. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I just threw a lot of physical runes on her, and she multi-hits so frequently that she's not Miyake's, of course, but she actually came pretty close in terms of damage output by the end.
But yeah, so after the whole Xyleid's death, then you go inside, and then you're met with Alenia and Zahak.
Yes.
Twice.
Twice. You fight them once as like normal.
Raging Nostrum, right?
Yeah, and then they ingest the Raging Nostrum, and then you fight them. Like, honestly, this battle was pretty, like, I thought it was really easy.
It was very easy.
Yeah, like, it's nothing too, like, noteworthy to say, and I honestly couldn't wait to kill them either, because I hated both of them.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
Yeah, it was,
I do have I don't know, I kind of have a soft spot for Alenia, not as a character. I like a bad girl like her, and, like, I don't know. I like her design as well, I think. It's a hack
Her
I
design
really
though is really
don't
nice. I
care
do like
about.
Alenia's design.
Yeah, I think it's the design I like about Alenia the most.
And then I also think that the writers did give her a lot of depth because even though she was a blinded Godwin fan, she got a lot of personality in it, you know? Like
she seems very insecure.
Yeah, she's always so desperate for Giselle's affection
approval,
and attention and praise that, it definitely makes her seem more sympathetic.
Right. And then after this, you finally get to showdown with Giselle.
Yeah.
And it's a duel, not a boss battle. So it's you against him. And
he's sort of saying he's protecting Limsley at this point, which is like a weird sort of...
Yeah, this whole sequence is like, to me, where I think that they're trying to do a thing, which is like, he's like, oh, we all wanted the best for Soulful Lena. Like, no, you didn't. You killed a bunch of people.
You definitely maybe.
You hired Kilderick. I mean, like, you wanted the best for yourself. But I think the game is 100% trying to get us to think that was all true. And get us to sympathize with him. And then, like, later, like, when he does, like, the Obi-Wan ghost thing and he's clapping for you, which we'll talk about later. Like, I just don't buy it. He is totally irredeemable in my eyes. I mean, I enjoy his character. I think he's interesting. I think he's engaging. But, like, you're not going to convince me that he's, like, the kind of Suikoden villain who is just, like, a moral gray area. I'm like, no, he's just pretty much evil. I'm sorry.
If he did anything at all that was positive, but he hasn't. Nothing.
He loves Silenes, and he's sad when she dies.
Yeah,
that's it.
We're all sad, Gazelle.
Yeah, I'm sad too. All right.
Okay?
Yeah, I know. It's like, you're not the only one.
Yeah. So, but the defeat of Gazelle means that we have Limsley, but
it's not. Yeah, but then it's not the end.
We don't have the Sun Rune.
Yeah, we don't have the Sun Rune because Mariscal took it to where, if there is a Dawn Rune ruins and then Twilight Rune ruins, then there must be a Sun Rune ruins, right?
It's only
I think this whole thing is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's just like an extension of
we need a final boss
for the sake of it.
Yeah, we need
the game is over, man.
It's it's like Necron and FF9. It's like, okay, well, we got to have a final boss.
Yeah, I mean, at least in Suikoden 2, when I fight the Beast Rune, like it's in Highlands. It's right after I took the castle. I mean, like that's where it should have happened. I don't have to go to another ruins and then like use 3 parties to do it and run through it. And it takes forever, and I have to go level some of those characters up because I don't have 18 people who are up to level. Yeah, like why? The game was already long enough. Come on.
Do we think they were running out of time towards the end of the game to do things the way they wanted? The way sort of like you said, Gazelle is sort of trying to do a thing but it doesn't quite work, and then you've got Mariscal who just seems to be running away with a statue into the mountains, and it's like that's her final boss, and it's like did it needed more fleshing out just to make it more satisfying?
I think that they actually just needed to contract it. Like I just think they did more than they needed to actually.
I feel like if they just focused on like the Sun Rune itself at this point, then I feel like I would have been more okay or whatever. But then when they were trying to like just go do this and then go do that, I was like, are you serious? Like,
but we do get a sort of a final dungeon, I suppose.
I hated the final dungeon
we have
too.
To split into 3 different parties, and it's the longest dungeon, the hardest dungeon. It's got bosses and stuff. Maybe Arash is harder. I don't know.
I think it's just difficult because you have to use 18 characters that you're not really I don't know. I don't want to say familiar with, but it's like
they're not your A team.
They're not, and they're just not your A team is split into like 3 different parts.
And I never liked Zvieg really, so every time, but he gets forced into your party so much in this game, and I never quite
he's not good.
No, he's not good. So it's like,
I'm happy that they latched George onto him because this is the game's way of saying like, oh no, we will get you a strong party member in here, and I'm like, thanks. How about the others? Like, they're not.
I mean, it just becomes like inventory management for the sake of inventory management too. Like I don't have all these people geared up, so like I have to rotate them all into my party. I have to like put the gear on them, and the inventory management in this game is hot garbage anyway. And so like it's so frustrating. I mean, like I didn't really have a problem with the dungeon, and I do like some of the moments at the end. But I just think that they could have totally eliminated both the mountains and the dungeon, and made the events that happen inside of the dungeon in front of the Sun Rune happen at Soulful Lena. I would have been perfectly fine with that.
No, I agree. And the thing is, I mean, for me, I hated this dungeon and the Deep Twilight for whatever dungeon. Like
that's so hard to navigate.
Deep Twilight Forest way worse than this one.
I hated both just because this one's there's so many switching of parties. It's like, oh, let me switch over now. I'm like,
yeah.
Why couldn't this just be one straightforward dungeon with just let me just get to the end.
Someone just played Final Fantasy VI and they just needed to have it as the final.
Oh my god, yeah.
For reasons why Leona didn't finish this game, all my characters are level 50, like all 108 or whatever, all battle members. So
you would have been okay then.
And they're all fully equipped and they all have like level 12 weapons right now. I wasted a lot of time. Just a weirdo.
Well, the ending will be very easy for you.
Yeah, it'll be probably very easy for me, but I have made it harder, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So we find the final boss, which Triss describes it as the Sunrune Moth.
It is because Stolfolina means sun moth in I forgot which language.
And it looks like a moth.
And that's why I call it the sun moth.
Yeah.
Because it is Stolfolina. Lamp. Yes. That boss. I will say this was the only battle I had trouble with. But I think I died the first time, but I only died once, and that was because I was pretty underprepared.
What's the difficult part of this boss? I'm curious because I mentioned this before we recorded, but like I just got multi hits from Richard, Miyakis, and Leon in the first round, and it was over before Zarase even fired off her spell. So
I didn't have the strike back rune on any of them at all, and so I literally went in like fully I was like I don't want to do it that way. I want to actually because I did that the first time I played, I think. And I was like, let me challenge myself. And oh my god, I was praying that I was going to win. It was definitely a lot. Richard's magic defense is horrible.
Yeah.
So he just kept dying. And I didn't even bother using George in this fight because I was like, nope.
You're going to not able to, actually. Unless you're doing New Game Plus. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. And then...
What was happening with George?
George is guarding the gate or whatever. He and Zweig say I can't fight. But apparently, if you played through New Game Plus, he will be available to you in the fight. Not that you would really need him on New Game Plus, I'd imagine. But yeah,
at that point, you're like, yeah, I did have trouble because of those the two things that comes with it. I was like, let me just kill off these two first, and then I'll deal with the sun rune itself. Then I forgot, and then I was like, oh no, you regenerate them. And so I was like, that was a waste of time.
Anyway,
I was so pissed.
What happens when you defeat Marscal as the incarnation of the Sun Rune?
It depends on the ending you get, right?
That's where I'm going at. Because when I first played the game, Leon just randomly dies.
Yeah,
she does die. She just randomly
She dies either way.
Yeah. Oh, she dies either way?
Yeah, I mean, she dies.
But then gets brought back.
Are able to bring her back to life if you recruit all 108.
Yeah.
Right. And my whole thing, it was like, okay, if the Sun Rune can have this power, can you bring back Arshtot, Ferret, and Siledes, please? But in Siledes is high priority. I was like, it doesn't need to be all that, but Siledes is and I was like, okay, nope, just Leon. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an intrinsic Dawn Rune thing or just a 108 stars thing,
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. I mean, it was not my...
obviously, because Roy died in my first playthrough of this game, so I could not get the true ending, so I just saw Leon die, and then it was over, and I'm like, what the hell was that? It's such a weird way to, I never quite understood. I mean, I guess that it was supposed to, that she was just on borrowed time since her stabbing, and sort of we stabilized her for a bit, but she was, had death marked on her. The Dawn Rune brings her back, and what's the epilogue like?
So this one you can choose between either the Queen's Knight ending, where you become a Queen's Knight, but this depends on your relationship with Limslia, and then or you can choose to be an adventurer with George. And I think I chose the George ending the first time I played, and I chose the Queen's Knight ending this time.
I don't remember. The only ending I remember is having a conversation with George where he pulls off his eye patch. It's like, joke, I have 2 eyes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that happens regardless of the ending that you
regardless.
get.
Yeah.
I just do it to look cool.
I chose the Queen's Night ending, but then I went to YouTube and watched the George, like you just choosing to leave Sol Felena and go with George, and I actually thought that was way cooler.
I
get to honestly.
Wouldn't it be so cool if you like in Suikoden 2, like you actually saw like the prince at some point? That'd be so cool.
Man.
But
yeah, a remake of Suikoden 2 with the prince's recruitable character. Yes.
Oh,
you would have
things.
3
We
of
cannot. Us 3 just cannot get together without wanting to start some sort of like new Suikoden project.
Konami, hire us.
So that's the game. That's Suikoden 5. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favorite games of all time. You know, Suikoden, my favorite series, and it does not disappoint. It really doesn't, and it just makes me so sad that we don't have a future for Suikoden right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't disappoint. Yes, it does, because there's no Suikoden 6 in the near future.
Yeah, it's just it came. I think it just came at such a poor time for JRPGs. Honestly, that
it was right around the time that we were going into like that 6-year lull.
Yeah, where everyone was saying JRPGs are dead, and it's like the future is not like that JRPG. So it's like it was a really dark time.
I mean, it was also tough because, you know, even the series itself was going through, because people weren't really a fan of the Suikoden 3 because it was a 3-part story this time, and you have to change, which I loved. I loved that part.
I love 3.
And then 4, which I never played, so I can't say anything on that.
I don't love 4. I will admit I don't love 4.
And by the time 5 came in, it was like nobody wants to play it anymore because they were too like burnt by the other 2.
Yeah.
And it's sad because 5 was like the return to the good of the series.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I can see why, but I'm like, Suikoden 6 is, you know, it's doable. You have something, I think you have like 18 true runes left to talk about. Like, I still want to know about all these runes. You still have like so many empires. Like, you have...
I mean, go back to the sprite-based graphics if you want to. If you do that, Suikoden 6, I'd be totally happy. You could do it on a low budget. People would go wild for it. Konami is missing out on this.
Developers want to make a knockoff, Suikoden knockoff. I'm there. I'm with you. Honestly, I'll support you. Like if you got a good writer, and you know, absolutely. But yeah, so let's talk about one more thing before we sign off, and let's talk about some of the non-plot recruits. So give me your favorite non-mandatory recruit and your least favorite mandatory recruit. I will start. My favorite non-mandatory is Egbert. I've already talked about Egbert. I love Egbert. He's I talk to him every time something plot related happens afterwards, and I just like to hear what he says, and he delights me. My least favorite is Lou, the girl who speaks and speak like, it's so 2000s. It hurts me. I hate her so much. What about you guys? Tress, what do you have a... Zach.
I mean, I'm going to steal probably one of Triss's, and I'm sorry for favorite. But Sagari.
She's still my favorite.
I knew I would. I'm sorry. But I mean, we find out in the second half if you do a side quest and recruit. I think it's Nikea is his name or something like that. I can't remember the character's name.
It's not something. I know who you're talking. Nakula.
Yeah, Nakula. If you recruit Nakula, he's saying, I'm coming here because I must murder the person who killed my father. They're in Nethergate, and I got to take them down.
Yeah, it was a little girl who smiled as she slit my father's throat.
Smiled as she slit my father's throat. And if you're paying attention, you're like, oh yeah, there's a character who seems like she could maybe be an assassin who smiles a lot. And it's Sagari. And so if you go and you grab Oburo and Sagari and bring them back, it turns out that, you know, all three of them of the detective agency were members of Nethergate, and they all left. But she can't do anything but smile. And she says, you know, if you want to kill me, do it. I understand. But let us finish this battle. And he joins that. And I think that just the way that's played is really beautiful. And I love in the post-credit sequence, which we didn't talk about, where it goes through all 108 characters and tells you what they're about to do. It says, like, sometimes her smile breaks. And I just think that's wonderful and beautiful and really, really nicely done. It's great great writing.
Yeah, I will say also for least favorite, you can add like heart, like you just didn't like the way you had to recruit them.
Cyro is my least
God,
favorite.
okay.
There we go.
Well,
I'm sorry. The person where you have to wait till the salt goes down, and you have to go check with him every half hour to find out if the salt price has gone down.
Yeah.
I didn't get him until like hour 25, and I had been checking every half hour for 15 hours. It's incredibly frustrating.
okay. Well, I know mine isn't Cyro for that. I mean, yeah, Sagiri definitely for everything that Zach said, because I don't know. Sagiri was always, but even like just her design in general, I've always loved Sagiri's design.
Yes.
I love those ninja-looking type characters. I guess I've always, even in Suikoden 2, reviewed that ninja.
Of course.
And so but even the backstory is what got to me. I remember like seeing the end credits, the post credits for the first time, and when she's at her and sometimes her smile slips a little, I was like, oh my god, like I just got chills reading that.
I mean, it's not often you're like, oh, she's not smiling, hooray!
Right. And then
it's really subtle and really interesting writing for a JRPG. I mean, like it's very, very nicely done.
Right, and her whole character is subtle because even when you talk to her, and I mean, I always talk to Sagiri in my castle, but it's like when you talk to her and when Leon gets hit and she's in the hospital and she goes, "Prince, no, don't look. I don't want you to see me smiling at a time like this."
Oh.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my god!" Like
That's so sad.
I know, like
fabulous character.
I was like, they definitely took the time to give her character the characterization. And then for least favorite, I mean, recruitment wise, Cyro, like I got his flag the same time I was doing the Obero flag, and I was stressed out. Like I had to run, and I was like, "Oh my god, am I doing 2 flags at the same time? Will it work?" And so I ran and got Cyro real quick, and then I had like a timer. I was like, "Oh my god, is there a timer for the Obero flag?" And I was like, I stressed out. I had to save like twice to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I got everybody, and I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like Cyro, I was really salty. Pun most definitely intended by the end of that.
Oh
like,
my god, that pun.
I was definitely salty. But my least favorite, honestly, is Cornelio. I don't see his point in the story. No. He calls you mediocrity the entire time, and I'm like, can you just shut the hell up?
I have one elf, and that's all the else I got. I don't care about getting the Doremi elves.
Yeah, I killed them every time I fight them.
They were just an inconvenience because
die again.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I did want to say that I was laughing because I was getting the last one, which is the white one, and I was like, oh, I found it, and I was like, oh hey, let me get this right now because I had Cornelio on my party, and I defend with everybody because I had to switch into Cornelio because I forgot that he wasn't in my main, and then it attacks Miyake's counters and just kills it in one blow.
Yeah, Miyake's, get it.
I was like, and then I was like Googling, do the Doremi elves respawn, or did I kill him for good?
Unfortunately,
they spawn
all
the time.
They do. And then so I got it, and then my next battle was again, and I was like, you know what, let me get at you right now. But I really didn't care for Cornelio. Like, I'm grateful that you can get him as like extra characters in the beginning, but his whole character was just completely annoying to me.
Well, I think that's a good time for us to wrap up. We went on for 2 hours there, so sorry about that, guys. But we had so much fun talking about this. I think I love this recording, and thanks so much for talking to me with you two. You're always you two are a delight to talk about, talk to, and
you too.
Thank you. And Tress, this will be maybe your swan song for the podcast, at least. At least for the future.
Yeah, I mean, unless you drag me back in for like Suikoden 3 or like Golden Sun: The Lost Age.
I'll never count you out, Tress. I'll never count you out. But thanks so much for joining on this. When we saw that, I was like, I must get Tress.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I was like, I want to do this again.
And obviously Zach is just as much as a super fan as I am, so...
Yep.
I wasn't going anywhere. Just a recipe for disaster on this for long podcasts. Anyway, so thanks so much for joining me, guys, and thank you, listeners, so much for letting us ramble on like that. Next month we've got Nier Automata. I don't know how to say it.
Automata is what I said.
Yeah, I say Automata.
Automata. That'll be 2 game journal episodes, which I'm also on. I hear my thoughts on that. next week. Coming up after that, we have one episode about love, because that will be probably February when that comes out. So Valentine's Day, obviously. And one episode about Dragon Quest.
Shocker there. We never do Dragon Quest episodes in retro.
No, I mean, Mike hates Dragon Quest. You know you can't get him to discuss it.
Yeah.
Kingdom Hearts is his favourite series, so he never shuts up about that.
Yeah.
Email us retro at rpgfan.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, and even if it's just something like, I really enjoyed that episode, we'd love to hear it. Comment with us on our RPG Fan forums, visit our Facebook page, our Instagram, Twitter, Discord, which I moderate on. Twitch channel is streaming pretty much every day. Always something going on there. Check out what we're playing. We have 2 other sibling podcasts. We have Random Encounter and Rhythm Encounter, plus partnered podcast Phoenix Edge. Check them out. They do live podcasts on YouTube. You can review us on iTunes, Google Play, whatever podcasting listening venue you use. We love your feedback. So let's plug some social medias. Tris, what's your...
Oh, none. Sorry.
None. All right. Tris is the smartest one of all of us, so he doesn't use social media. Zach?
You can email me at zachw@rpgfan.com, and you can also reach me on Discord at zachw.
Yes, and I'm the dumbest of all because I have all the social medias. You can get me on our Discord. You can find a link to that in the front page of the RPG Fan website. I'm Star Mongoose there. I'm Star Mongoose on Twitter. And I stream on Twitch at Star Mongoose RPG Fan. So thanks so much, guys. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.